Sometimes we get tossed and turned, we get battered by the storms of life, you know. Sometimes your sails get beaten and battered and torn, and you get put through the ringer. He says, Lord, Lord, why me? But brothers and sisters, instead of saying, why me? He says, Lord, I just pray that you'll just let your anchor just hold for me throughout this here storm. Because we serve an awesome God who is able, brothers and sisters. And we just pray today that your anchor through Jesus Christ will hold. Amen?
Of course. This one went out to the family of Colin Carter and family. And of course, condolences coming to you from Albert Lewis and family. Also the Christiana High School alumni. It's now 2:37. 1 minute late, Wiz. All right, we are in the segment, the love segment right now. And before we go into Pastor Wiz's love segment right here, I'm going to tell you that coming from Proverbs 19, in Proverbs 19 verse 11, it tells us that a person's insight gives him patience, and his virtue is to overlook an offense. Pastor Wiz will now tell us how love delays anger.
One of the best tools for keeping anger at bay is to have premeditated responses in place to match any offense that could arise. What if your spouse were to forget your birthday or anniversary, for example? What would be the best way to handle that? You could choose ahead of time that if such a thing were to happen, you would not let it send you off a deep end of anger. Psalm 78, in recalling God's dealings with his people, mentions that the ancient Israelites were deceptive, unfaithful, and persistent in their sinning, yet he was compassionate. He atoned for their guilt and did not destroy them. He often turned his anger aside and did not unleash all his wrath. Verse 38, he chose to delay his anger, coming down on the side of patience and compassion. We too can determine in advance that we will not let any slight on our spouse's part elicit an anger response. Prepare to be patient.
Pastor Wiz, folks get upset, family members get upset when you forget their birthdays and anniversaries and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, and sometimes, rightfully so, but at the same time, we have to learn to display patience with folks, especially our spouse. You see, because we're only human, and sometimes people make mistakes. And I'm sure that if the spouse was angry, really look into himself or herself, they would see that there were times when they too made mistakes. And so one of the ways we can do this is by having premeditative responses in place to match any offense that could arise. You formulate in your mind, ways by which things could happen that could occur that would hurt your feelings, but at the same time, you're going to display that patience and that discipline to say, okay, but if this happens, then instead of doing A, I can do B. And we can determine in advance to display that patience. And by doing so, you will be able to hold together your marriage, hold together that relationship, and be the glue that really bonds it together and look beyond the faults and see the need.
And I think too, another thing is, if you are angry about something, it's best to wait. To just wait until you cool off.
Just calm down.
Calm down. Just give it a day or so, because sometimes, I think it's human, to think that when you should remember that it's my birthday. But given what's happening now with people having so much to do, you're running here, you're running there, and with the pressures of life, you sometimes forget things. You don't want to, but it happens.
Because of that also, the person who's neglected becomes agitated too. And most of the time, when that person becomes agitated, usually it's because, there is something else there that is not really.
Not all the time, not all the time. People just, you wouldn't want me to remember your birthday.
Well, of course.
And if I forget, I know it's human. I think it's human. But you have to say to yourself, well, maybe something else is happening with her because this is not like her.
Okay, so that's the reason why you don't go off the deep end.
Right.
See, that's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Okay, fine, so she forgot my birthday. Okay, but because you're going to display patience. And I said, well, that's not like that. So, given, that gives you enough reason not to go off deep and just, blaze up and just carry on, because then it's going to make matters worse.
That's right, and him or she forgetting the birthday doesn't mean that there's not love, that the person is not in love with you, or the person doesn't love you.
Maybe if you are loving, even though it's your birthday that the person forgot, by showing love, not by saying, okay, she forgot my birthday. Let me display some love to him. Let me find out what is going on.
No, if something that keeps going on and happening
that's
every year,
that's a different story.
It's a different story.
And we hope you certainly don't come into that story.
Yeah, okay.
But, we just want to, let you know that, we can display patience with folks, especially with our spouse, even in a situation where, it seems as if your spouse, has forgotten about the special day.
All right, so there you have it this afternoon, folks. It's now 2:42. We are getting up to that time. We have a guest specialist coming up. We have immigration lawyer Antoinette Russell coming up. I want to just say a special shout out to Vanny up there in
I want to say hi to Vanessa and to Jaden.
All right. And folks that missed this segment, if you want to tell your friends about it, you can go to YouTube. Go right now. It will be a little later on this afternoon at Wisdom Sabbath video. You can just have your friends or family members view this pre-recorded segment right here on WAVS Radio.
I want to thank you so much for hanging with us this afternoon throughout this love segment. Stand by for a lot more.